What's going on, PlayDate Community? Welcome back to another episode. My name is Franchovy, and in this series we are building your game. So I want to take a minute to thank the people who've been dropping suggestions. I've seen that those have been rolling in. Very exciting. Before we get to that, I realize that we have a basic thing that we need to take care of. And if we don't fix this, the game's gonna feel awful forever. So we can get right into it. Let me give you guys a brief of what we're gonna do. We're gonna fix the spawners so that they don't spawn something on the player's face. We're gonna improve the spawn rate and how exactly the spawn timing works so that it's more random, also less random, I don't know. We're gonna improve it, it's gonna be better. Trust me, bro. We're gonna add a difficulty curve. That's gonna be a big one. It's not gonna be that complicated, but you guys will have to follow along closely, so let's get right into it. So as you can see, I am flying around, shooting these bad guys over here. You see, right now, a monster just spawned on my face. And so that was kind of unfair. There's not really anything I could do as a player to avoid an enemy spawning on my face. So that's gonna be the first thing we're gonna tackle. We're gonna go into the spawner.lua inside the utils/spawner.lua. And here you can see the update function. It's about to get much more complicated in this one. So first thing we're gonna do is actually we're gonna do some small housekeeping. We're gonna write at the bottom of the file function spawner : activate, open close brackets, and put an end there. And we're gonna actually move over the code here to spawn the sprite into the activate function. So, and then from the update function, line 27, we're gonna say self : activate, open close brackets. So now that we have the code inside the activate function, we can kind of separate out the when to spawn logic versus the what happens when you spawn logic. That's kind of the thinking there. So here, when we're putting the sprite on the screen, the problem is that we're choosing a random point, but we're not checking whether there's a player there. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna get the player. We're gonna do get player. We're gonna do, sorry, that was a comment. We're gonna do local player equals capital P player dot instance. So that's our instance that we're gonna be grabbing. We're gonna do, we're gonna quit early if the player's not there. So we're gonna do if not player, then return, and then end. So this makes sure that if there's no player, we're not gonna do any logic that will break. So then finally, we gotta put the sprite on the screen. What we're gonna do is that we're gonna try to put the sprite on the screen, and if the player's there, we're gonna retry. So we're gonna use something from Lua called the repeat until. That's the same thing as a while loop, except that the conditional, a while would be like this: while true, do, end. And then whatever I do here will repeat while this thing here, like x is less than 5, it needs to be true, and then once it's false, I quit the loop. We're actually gonna do it the other way around. So we're gonna do, and this is usually called a do while loop. So it's gonna be something like this, do while. However, in Lua, because Lua wants to be its own thing, it's called repeat. And then you can see it's suggesting it there, until. And then we're gonna have x is less than 5. So there's no end at the end of that conditional right there. It's kind of weird, but there's no end there. So we're gonna put sprite on screen in the middle. So just to rehash everything, we're gonna say repeat, and then we're gonna put sprite on screen code. So sprite : move to, and then the math.random stuff inside, until, not x minus less than 5. We're gonna do until playdate dot geometry dot distance to point. So we're gonna get the distance between, let's see, x1, y1, x2, y2. So we're gonna do player.x, comma, player.y, comma, sprite.x, comma, sprite.y. So I hope you understand what we're doing. We're just comparing the distance between the player and the sprite, and if that distance is Oh yeah, we need to add the conditional. So if we're gonna do repeat until the distance is greater than, and I'm gonna put 50 because it's approximately like the right distance. So there's a bit of margin. So basically we're gonna retry the spawn every time that the geometry is, the distance is less than 50. We can show that this works by doing like this. We're gonna add a print statement in the while loop. We're gonna do print sprite.x comma sprite.y. And we're just, for the sake of this example, I'm gonna increase this from 50 to, let's say, 120. So what we can do is we can do print, and we can copy and paste that line of playdate geometry, and that way we can compare the distance and see if it's less than 120, or in our case 50, the thing's gonna refire again. Oh, okay, yeah. So you can see it fire a bunch of times there where it's like 78, 46, 67, and it's firing again to move the enemy again after it spawns. So I'm gonna remove that print statement there. I'm gonna do a small improvement. I'm gonna change playdate.geometry to geo. And at the top of the file, I'm gonna do the same thing that we're used to doing with Playdate graphics. We're gonna do local geo, open brackets, const equals playdate.geometry. That's it for the fix. So now we're sure that it's not gonna spawn on top of the player. I'm gonna change that back to 50, not 120. So that's basically like checking for safe distance. So I will add a comment there. Check for safe distance from player, if not repeat. And then I'll add a comment at the bottom, which is add sprite to screen. Okay, the next thing, I was just checking my agenda for today. Next thing is to improve this spawn rate. So right now what we've got is that we've got this math.random. So this update loop right here, we're actually going to change the logic here because this is too random. Basically, it's like math.random. It can hit 5 times within 1 millisecond, and it can hit 0 times within 100 milliseconds. So we're going to control this a little better. However, the way that we can control it is by calculating the amount of time until the next spawn. So we can't do it by just guessing a number, which is what we've been doing so far. We actually need to get the next amount of time before the spawn. So we're gonna go into the spawner.init, and we're gonna do self, next to the self.isActive, we're gonna do self.time next spawn. And I mean, initialize it as 0, like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, no, I guess 0 is a good number because it's always gonna be less than the current time. So we can go to spawner:update, and we can do like this. So here we're gonna check if sprite should be spawned. Wow, what a coincidence. Same comment as below. So we're gonna just replace that line on line 29. We're gonna replace it with if playdate.get current time milliseconds is greater than, with open close brackets, it's greater than self.time next spawn, then self.activate. I'm gonna add comments here. So self::activate, I'm gonna add spawn sprite, and then after that I'm gonna say set next spawn time. And that for now I'm just gonna do self::time next spawn equals playdate.get current time milliseconds plus 1, like spawn 1 every second. Let's see if that works. So we should just be having 1. Oh, that was not what I intended. Okay. So that was 1 spawn per tick or millisecond. Yeah, I guess millisecond, which is not what I expected. So let's try that again. Let's do 1000 plus 1000. Let's go. That's better. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Okay, you can see that it works properly. That was funny. So we're gonna actually, instead of doing this plus 1000, we're gonna do a random distribution between a certain minimum and maximum. But we are gonna use that variable that we were given earlier from the enemy, which is the spawn rate per tick. So follow along carefully. Promise we're gonna be fine. We're gonna do local r equals math.random, open close brackets. So again, we're gonna do between 0 and some random number. We're actually gonna cap this. It's not too small and it's not too big, because when we get those too small and too big numbers, it's like, it feels wrong. Either the weight is really long or we're getting multiple things spawning at once, which I don't like, I'm sure nobody likes. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna wrap that math.random with a math.min, open brackets. And then at the end of math.random, we're gonna do comma. And so minimum will get the lower of the two numbers that are inside of it. So either we're gonna get a math.random number, or we're gonna do the minimum, which will be 0.8 right there. And then we're gonna wrap that again, so close brackets after that. We're gonna wrap it again with a math.max. So math.max, open brackets, comma, 0.4, and then close brackets. So that's the reason it's kind of leaning towards one side is because we're more or less okay with things spawning quickly, but we're not okay with things taking really long time to spawn. So that's the R, so that's the more or less random variable that will be capped at 0.8, 0.4. Now, okay, so we're gonna modify this next one. I'm just gonna rewrite that line from scratch. Okay, so follow along closely. Self dot time next spawn equals playdate dot get current time milliseconds, open close brackets, minus math.log, open brackets, r, close brackets, divided by, and this is when we're gonna put the spawn rate. So then we're gonna do self dot spawn rate per tick. So let's see if that works. Actually, we've converted to milliseconds, so we might need to change that. Anyways, start, yes, okay, so you can see that there's way too many. We're gonna turn this into a per second basis. So we're gonna do divide by 30. Self dot spawn rate per tick divide by 30 because we're dealing with 30 FPS. So restart, and you can see that that's better. It's better for sure. It's maybe a little bit high. Like, it's spawning quite a lot. But anyways, let's, the only thing I'm gonna do there, so that's your function, congratulations guys. The only thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to enemy.lua and I'm gonna change this 0.01 to 0.0, let's say 8. We want it to start nice and easy when you play. So yeah, let's see, one thing spawn at a time, nice and slow. Okay. However, I'm sure you guys agree, if we kept the game looking like this, I would want to shoot myself. So let's add some difficulty curve. I'll do it the simple way first, and then we'll clean up after ourselves. So I'm just gonna go straight into main.lua. And again, if you're doing things directly in main.lua, that means you're doing something wrong. So we're gonna clean up afterwards. I'm gonna add a difficulty as a comment. I'm gonna call it local difficulty. Okay, I'm gonna initialize it to 1. So this is gonna be a multiplier for our spawn rate. Then I'm gonna do a function, which is function get difficulty. And it takes no input because actually all we need is the game time. We do need, however, the time since the game has started. So we're gonna do game start time. And already this will be broken because like the game can restart, so we'll fix everything afterwards. So get difficulty. I'm gonna return basically a number that grows from 1 slowly, but not linearly. I want it to grow and slow down as it grows. So square root function is perfect for that. I'm actually gonna give an exponential that's slightly smaller than a square root so that it curves off even slower. So here you can see basically I've got this Desmos calculator, which if any of you are still in school, I hope you love using it. And we've got a times x to the b. X is our time. B is basically how fast it's gonna plateau. And then a is our modifier, which the calculator is pretty bad at helping us out right now, but it was just to give you guys a visualization of how that would look like. So it's gonna grow and then it's gonna plateau. Well, it doesn't technically plateau, it just increases more slowly. So we're gonna do our a times x to the difficulty. And x is gonna be local current time equals playdate.get current time milliseconds, open close brackets, minus game start time. And we're gonna just do everything inside this function. If game start time is null, then we're actually gonna set it. So I'm gonna do if not game start time, then game start time equals playdate.get current time in milliseconds, end. Okay, so we have our current time, which is gonna be the x. So we're gonna have local growth rate and local exponent. So the exponent's gonna be 0.4 and the growth rate's gonna be, I think I put it to 0.01. Yes, but let's see if that works. And then here, I'm gonna return growth rate times current time to the power of exponent. Okay, and you can see that it's complaining about all these different things. So I think originally no, actually, I mean, it shouldn't be a problem. We'll fix it later. Undefined global, but they're defined here. I don't know. I'm gonna, just to be safe, I'm gonna move all of these above the function itself. Okay, so this get difficulty, we're actually gonna update it with every tick. So we're gonna do here, we're gonna do inside playdate update, we're gonna do difficulty equals get difficulty, open close brackets. That's gonna be our difficulty. And we're actually gonna pass the difficulty into enemy spawner colon update. Again, we're gonna clean up in a second, just bear with me. We have to go into the spawner. We're gonna do spawner colon update, and we're gonna add a parameter there. On line 34, we're gonna multiply self.spawn rate per tick times difficulty. And we're gonna do, in the return function of get difficulty, we're actually gonna do 1 plus everything else. So it's gonna be return 1 plus growth rate times current time to the power of exponent. Okay, I hope you followed along. If you didn't, don't forget there's a Git repo. You guys can copy and paste code or just check out my branch. So yeah, Git repos in the description below. Make sure to use that if you need it. Let's restart the game. I'm gonna grab Buggy and let's see how that's looking like. So, oh, I guess probably better to actually print out the difficulty to see what's that looking like. So 1 second, guys. Let's go to main.lua playdate.update and let's print difficulty. So what we're expecting is it to start at 1 and to slowly grow from there. Oh my god, it's already starting at before the game even starts. You can see how this is broken. All right, so, but you can see that it's growing slowly, where it's at 1.4, 1.5. So the point is that we don't want it to grow too fast or else it can feel very overwhelming, but we don't want it to grow too slow either. And then over time, we don't want it to grow so fast because like once the game gets really difficult, if it just keeps getting more difficult, it's kind of a, yeah, it's a tough thing. So feel free to play around with those numbers. You can see that we're almost at difficulty 2, which means double the spawn rate. Yeah, so feel free to play around with those numbers, and I'm sure you can find the right difficulty that suits for you. If you guys want, you can even post your numbers in the comments and we can update the ones in the game. Because after all, this is your game! All right, help, my dude is lost. Ah, I lost, okay, I'm gonna pause here just so that we can continue this in the next episode. We're gonna add the difficulty that will grow over time. I'll explain a little bit of how that works, and I hope you guys are ready to follow along. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye. Oh, also put your suggestions in comments. More ideas.